Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. I've got another book review for you today, and it's another audio book review. This is the Star Wars Revenge of the Sith novel by Matthew Stover. Matthew Stover is the same author who wrote Shatterpoint, the Mace Windu novel, the Star Wars Legends book that I have reviewed previously. One thing I will say straight away before we get into it, Revenge of the Sith, obviously, this is the novel that follows the same plot as the film. However, it fills in some of the details that you don't get in the film, and it kind of changes slightly how things pan out a little bit in the book. One of the reasons I wanted to read this novel was, again, listening to Star Wars Theory, and one of the Theories podcasts, actually, he had Matthew Stover on, I believe, the author of this book, and he and Mark and some of the other people that Theory has talked with on the channel, about Revenge of the Sith, the novel, is just how rich in lore and detail it is, in terms of just a little bit of the details that fill out the story a little bit more, because obviously Revenge of the Sith, first of all, is one of my favourite of the Star Wars films. Obviously the Anakin and Obi-Wan battle on Mustafar is the best fight in Star Wars, the most famous, but one of the things that the film can't do is that it can't tell the entire story and go into depth in some of the places that you're really wanting to, and it's not a knock on the film. It's the fact that it's just screen time. George has to try and tell the story in 2 hours and whatever minutes, and he's got to try and build the world just enough to progress the story and not spend too much time on things that don't matter. And obviously, because it's the pinnacle of the Clone Wars, you've got to get in the scenes at the beginning with the Chancellor and Dooku. You've got to get in the scenes with Grievous, all of the things in between that kind of thread together what's happening in the Senate and the Jedi and what they know of it all, and their thoughts on Anakin and all of this. And I think that's where the book comes in and has a great role, actually. I think it's something I would definitely recommend reading. I listened to it, but equally I would have definitely bought the book and given this a good read. From listening to it, I think the description and the words and language used in the book is very nice, very fluent, easy to read, but very rich and descriptive. I think it would have been a fantastic read, because at moments you get those little nuggets of information, or the continuity, and you're like, oh yes, I know where this is going, and you latch on to, you focus on that part of the story because you wanted to fill in some gaps here. For example, Order 66, we're all as Star Wars fans, we're all dying to see more about it, know more about it. And any little piece extra we can get in any form, we're all sort of happy to have. And obviously, like in Book of Boba, when we had the Mandalorian episodes and Grogu with Luke, you had those visions of Order 66, even things like that, where we know from the accounts of what happened, but we don't get to see it, we don't hear the exact details of what happened. For example, like in the scenes of the book, during that time, it talks about how Anakin goes to the temple and he slays down these masters that he's known, and these Padawans, and it goes into a little bit more detail than obviously that famous, it's become sort of a meme now, but the younglings scene in the Revenge of the Sith movie, where Anakin just ignites the lightsaber and then that's it. In the book, it does a great job at filling in with information like that. So, for example, that scene in Order 66 with the Jedi Temple, having just some more information. Now, in terms of like I've mentioned before, canon and legends and how that works, I'm much like Theory. I think canon is, you should take what you consider to be canon to make the story kind of resonate with you. For example, this book, there's parts that don't happen the same as the movie, and there's parts that I would think that that actually would have been a better way to experience it on screen, and at times I think on screen it was experienced better. Obviously that goes back and forth. So what I think is really great about this is if you watch the film and then you go and read the book, you can kind of piece together the bits that you believe to be kind of part of the real story. For example, who Anakin actually kills when he's at the temple. In the film they don't really go into that, in the book they do, and I know in comics and other Legends novels and things like that, like and even now, in the Disney Plus specials, that could slightly change in certain ways, and there is going to be a canon storyline and a Legends or a considered Legends storyline. But I like the idea of, for example, us knowing about Anakin fighting these masters and doing what he did when he went to the dark side to them, rather than just he went to the temple and he slayed Jedi. But if you don't know who and how and what was going on at the time, it's kind of like it's a great notion, but you just want more detail. And the book does a really great job of that. It is it's strange. There's not as many chapters, so the chapters are actually quite long. I think there's only 20 odd chapters in this book. But the book, I will say, the Audible version, the voice acting was fantastic. It really enhanced the story. Some of the dialogue, I would say, is fantastic, and some of it is that kind of filler. For example, Padme in the book, they make her seem a little bit less worldly and kind of independent than they do in the Clone Wars. So in the Clone Wars, she's quite the mature one. She's very smart. She can get on with anybody. She can resolve anything. In the book, they kind of make her a little bit helpless. So I know that's kind of at the time with what's going on, that tries to build the world, but there's times where you are going to have different opinions based on the book and the film, and that's fine. Again, I think the book is fantastic. I think it goes hand in hand with the film really well. It doesn't contradict it, in such a way that you're going to get completely different storylines. Some of the things that pan out in the book pan out slightly differently in the film, but it's more so just dialogue or for example, when Dooku dies, what Palpatine says to Anakin and what's happening and going through Anakin's mind in the book gives you lots of rich detail, but it's the same process really. It's just maybe some of the timings of when things are said and when he takes the lightsabers to Dooku's neck. The timing might be off, but it's not so contradictory that it changes the overall story. I think that one of the things that I'll touch on, because I don't want to spoil it too much with these reviews, I want to kind of give you an overview of the book without going into too much detail. But obviously, if you've seen Revenge of the Sith, you get the gist. But in this book, it really touches on something really interesting. Actually, there was a lot of nods to how, at the time of Anakin having the visions about Padme, there was a lot of nod to how it's quite, and I know they nod to this in the Clone Wars, but it's kind of a joke. It's like everybody knows about Padme and Anakin, but it's like the taboo subject of like everybody knows, but we don't talk about it. Even though it's like it's deemed so wrong and whatever, it's kind of laughable because it's known by Palpatine knows because he has his sources, and obviously he's trying to recruit Anakin, so he's gonna have he'd be in touch with what's going through Anakin's head and what's going around him. And then Obi-Wan, obviously he's like a brother to him. He's not gonna rat him out. It doesn't really touch on the clones at all in this book. There's some dialogue from Cody, which is some good dialogue actually. It's some nice sort of him and Obi-Wan, some gentle like ribbing of like joking about that time they needed help and that and what's the score kind of between us sort of thing. But one of the things that was really good, I found, is that it really went into how, at that time, Anakin, there was a legit choice for Anakin to just leave the Order with Padme. And it kind of talks about how that is an option, that even the Jedi members would say, like, they said that's an option. And I think it kind of then brings you back more to the fact of, whereas before with just the film perhaps, you might think, okay, well, I feel bad for Anakin. He wants to live a normal life, but he wants to be a Jedi and do all these things that are right. But he could have left the Order, and it wouldn't be an issue. He wouldn't be, he wouldn't be exiled or anything. It's just more the fact that he wanted to also be a Jedi. Like, he wanted power. He wanted to be important. He wants to, do what he wants to do. He wants to take charge, and that's obviously the Anakin we know, and we know and love. But I think that's really important when you consider the story, because it shows that through this time, the Jedi are weary of, the changing of the times, but they are narrow-minded. They don't see that, they could have gone about the way they treated Anakin a different way. It kind of pushes him away and towards, making these mistakes. Palpatine in the book, it really goes deeper into how Palpatine manipulates him in the dialogue, and it's really good in that respect. I think, although we kind of understood how and why Anakin kind of did those things for Palpatine, in the film it has a portrayal more of desperation. In the book it's more of, it has desperation, but it's got fear, and there is logic. He sees logic to it. Palpatine kind of describes the Sith in more of a way of, it's not so much, he doesn't really talk about how it's dark. He talks about how it's a different point of view, and it's just a different way of basically being a Jedi. But he doesn't sell it like that. He just kind of, he sells Anakin on, you can basically be what you are now, but you can get what you want and get where you want and do what you want. And then kind of when Anakin falls, it goes, shit hits the fan, and Anakin kind of just spirals into darkness really quick. And in the book, the way he turns on Padme, on Mustafa, is slightly different. It just feels slightly more, like that dark spiral. Whereas in the film, it kind of feels like that's part of it, but he feels like he's being betrayed, because Padme's like, I can't do this. He felt like, whereas in the book, Padme turns up, and because Obi-Wan's with her, he just straight away, thinks that she's not, she's not on Palpatine's side, she's not on his side, she's a traitor, whatever, and he basically force chokes her. The same way he does in the film, but in the film it kind of strikes me as like, she says, you're going down a path I can't follow, and he's so angry and upset that she would, basically leave him, that he gets angry and it gets the best of him. And then she kind of, obviously in the film, loses the will to live based on the fact that Anakin's lost, and the world as she knows it is changed, and that's kind of how that goes. And it's similar in the book, but the book's description of it is a little bit different. She's just kind of so weak at that point, and she's kind of, again, they make her out in the book a little bit more to be quite the damsel in distress, and in the Clone Wars she's more of in the animated Clone Wars series, she's more of an independent kind of leader, boss woman. And in the prequels, Padme is slightly a bit of both. She doesn't get too much screen time in terms of her political endeavours like she does in the Clone Wars. So you only see, obviously, when she's trying to take back Naboo, and then in those second and third films, those scenes of her and Anakin, things like that, to kind of develop, their story and their love. But it's this book is fantastic. I will say that the Audible version is definitely worth a go. I think the sounds in it, and the voice acting, it does add to the story. I think because it immerses you. You can, using the film, you can kind of piece together the the places they're in when they use the descriptive words, but you can sort of, you know what the bridge looks like of you know, the Separatist ship where they have the battle with Dooku, because you've seen the film, but then the dialogue and the descriptive power kind of adds to that. But you aren't piecing as much together in your mind. And interestingly, actually, Matthew Stover wrote the Shatterpoint book, and I struggled with the world building in that a lot more so than I did with this. And I think it's partly because of the film aspect of having that visual cue to rely, kind of, you know, fall back on in your mind. But yeah, I think in the book, towards the end, for example, how it goes down with Grievous is different, but only slightly. Like I say, it's not in such a way that it changes the story drastically. I think the best way to experience this book is to watch the film and then listen to the book, or, you know, either way you want to do it. I would probably say go with the film first, because most people will have already done that. But even if you want to read it, I think reading it would be a fantastic way to experience it as well. I just know that the Audible version was really easy to listen to, really interesting. It's definitely, like I say, a strong book. I would say that in terms of books to recommend, I would say that it's a 10 out of 10, like with Plagueis. I think because the story is so known, all you're getting is rich dialogue, kind of, that tells you the story you already know and love from the you know, the film screen, but you're getting the little pieces that basically you can consider them extras, you know, that didn't make the cut of the movie because of screen time. And I think in terms of characters in it, it really develops. It talks about Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship really well, and how they're actually known across the galaxy, and you know, for their adventures and their teamwork and all these things. And it kind of really, I think what's a great thing about the book is that if you listen to the book and watch the film, like I say, you can piece together and say, all right, I'll choose that part from the film as canon, that part from the book as my canon for my Revenge of the Sith story on the whole. And I think, for example, the description of a lot of their relationship leading up to the end of the film, where that lightsaber battle happens, is really nice in the books, really good, really rich. And I think it's probably somewhat better than it is in the film, just because of the amount of time that can be given to it. But then in the film, hands down, the portrayal of that fight on camera in the film is 10 times better than the book. And that's not necessarily a dig on the book, it's just that fight is timeless. It's so well choreographed, there's so much on the line, visually it's stunning, it's, you know, it's fantastic. But like I say, it's kind of how it leads up to that in the book, and then like I say, from the film you know what it looks like, so you can kind of take its description in the book for what it is, and just use your knowledge of what happened in the film as your canon. I know I certainly did. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. I think like for me, if you've got Audible, give it a go. If not, it's definitely worth a purchase. If you're going to go for one of these books, I would say I would read it second after you read Plagueis, and then read some of the other novels after that. I think it's definitely one of the first ones you should read or listen to. But I hope you've enjoyed this review, guys. I definitely think you should check it out. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe, leave a like, and leave a like on the video if you enjoy it, and any of the other videos, and do comment if you've got some questions, and I'll try and fire back at you. But yeah, subscribe if you're new, really does help me out and the channel. And I'm going to leave you with that, guys. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.